Ciao a tutti, io sono Annelena
So,
del Portogallo.
hello to all.
Parleremo di che
I am from Portugal, and we will speak about care to imagine. And through imagination, we can descend deep into ourselves and take flight, embarking on a journey made up of dreams, desires, art, commitments, until we perceive the transcendent in ourselves, in others, and in nature. We want to help connect our inner selves with others and with nature in which we live, rediscovering the relationships that bind us and our common belonging. Starting from caring for our relationship with others, through caring for our relationships with others, to caring for our relationships with nature and with what transcends everything and everyone. This is the commitment of Care to Imagine. We would like to invite all of you to experience through meditation, techniques for soul, mind, and body, moments of shared interiorization and encounter with the transcendent and that which lies beneath everything and everyone. This is a commitment and the path to living integral ecology together. We would like to invite you all to do this with us. Let's begin this journey together with the experience of the relationship between Thalassia and its sea, and then with Nino Pulisi. Thalassia is a marine ecology researcher and currently works at the Darwin Torrens Sea Museum in Naples. She is an instructor and underwater photographer who lives the sea at 360 degrees. She is involved in the field of integral ecology as an Italian and at international level. Then Nino is a researcher in chemistry and has worked in Italy, the UK, and Turkey. He is currently researching the Boca University in Vienna, passionate about the relationship between science, faith, and culture. He holds a master's in science and faith from the Regina Apostolorum University. He is also a research associate at the Faculty of Theology and Religion at the University of Pretoria in South Africa. Today, he will introduce us to the spiritual vision of nature and the role of faith in the face of climate change. Ciao, Nino. Thalassia. My love for the sea dates back to my birth. From a very young age, my parents passed on to me their respect for and belonging to this common home, precious and unique, as the cradle of life on our planet. But it is over time that this intimate and special relationship with the sea and its organisms has grown to occupy every area of my life. I immediately felt that I belonged to the sea as a creature, and I perceived God's presence underneath things, underneath the seaweed that is energetically ruffled by the current, among the schools of fish dancing in the turquoise waters, in the beauty of the bright colors of the sponges and the madrepores, in the delicacy of the corals and seahorses. Everything underwater is in a loving relationship with everything. Everything with everything. Every living thing with every living thing. Photography, which from the Greek means writing with light or writing about light, together with my creativity, allows me to capture and tell through images the reflection of God among the waves and the sea depths.
Once I spoke with an astronaut, just came back from the moon with the stars in his eyes. He said out there I learned
We want to contribute to connect our being with others and with nature. by rediscovering the relationships that bind us to our common living. We commit ourselves to live integral ecology together. We want to perceive and experience our common belonging to nature.
I met a girl, she was very young, yet she spoke burning words with the fire in her eyes.
We want to contribute to rediscover nature as a meeting space with ourselves, with the others, and with the transcendence. We want to spread and sustain integral ecology as a common interfaith, ecumenical, and spiritual commitment.
Allora, ciao a tutti.
So hello to all, good afternoon, morning, or night, evening, according to where you are. And thank you, Anna, and Talasia for this sharing your life with the sea, which is so beautiful and important for our lives. I would like to start putting immediately on chat the links that maybe were missed out in the last part of the program, in the earlier part of the program. So now we will go and explore the relationship between our faith and ecology. Yes. And we have this, we have seen from the experience of Talasia. We go a bit deeper according to wisdom. And then we will also listen to an experience of a person, of a community, interreligious community, which has we have a live with Eddie and Zarina, who tell us how they have prepared themselves for COP26. The environmental crisis is undoubtedly one of the most critical and urgent problems of our time. And now, more than ever, we need to come together to safeguard our common home. The time has come to think together, act together, and pray together. And I'm sure that we are all familiar with Laudato Si, the document that Pope Francis launched a number of years ago. In recent years, we have seen similar statements on the environment by other people of other religions. But maybe not many of us know that during Laudato Si, there were other religious communities have launched similar documentations. And in 2015, we have that the Islam also, they launched, and more recently, Mizan, which has the ambition, which is equivalent in a way to Laudato Si from the Islamic viewpoint. So it's inspired from the Quran. But similar declarations have been done by Hindus, Buddhists, and Jews. And it would be interesting to study all of them. But why should we, people of faith, care about the environment? Our first perception, immediate perception of ecology is that it is a problem of industrialized societies. It could, in fact, also be seen through a religious lens. And this is not just because religions must have a word to say on such a big issue that affects millions of people of faith around the world. 90% of the people on the planet consider themselves as people of faith. So we could argue, because the environmental crisis seems to have its roots precisely in the way we interpret our relationship as human beings with nature in our holy books and religious traditions.
Che sembra essere radicato nei testi sacri. Allora è importante.
And so it is important to understand the relationship that there is. So let's together look at some key elements that might help us to motivate our ecological commitment from a spiritual point of view. In biblical monotheism, we find, like in the Jewish faith and Christianity, we find a radically new idea of a universe freely created by a God who is love. We have been created by God who is love, and this is something that has entered into our life. God remains present everywhere in creation, and yet at the same time is distinct from nature. So creation is therefore sacred because it is linked to God. In Christianity, since the Middle Ages, the relationship between man and nature was fundamentally governed by natural laws and characterized by cooperation. Monasticism in the West, for example, was so keenly aware of this that it preserved the most beautiful forests in Europe, many of which have become UNESCO World Heritage Sites. The life of Saint Francis is itself an extraordinary testimony to this relationship. In his Canticle of the Creatures, he calls the sun brother and the water sister, not just to express something emotionally, but rather to affirm a truth that he perceives, that he feels, and that is this unity, presence in the whole universe. In the Franciscan sources, we find in his rule, we find that Francis asked he asked to the friar, who was a gardener, that a part of the garden of the friary always be left uncultivated, so that wildflowers and herbs might grow there, and those who saw them might raise their minds to God, the creature of so much beauty. In Francis' intuition, very deep intuition, we can see more than a simple poetic sensibility, but rather he perceives a deep concern for the conservation of biodiversity, and in this to leave a part of the garden uncultivated. In the West, up to this point in history, human beings mostly perceive themselves in the world as a mystical and sacred reality greater than their own minds were able to grasp. So with the Enlightenment, we see a progressive deterioration of that world view, to see the person who thinks so distinct, so separated from the rest of creation. So how the mind was more important. And so it was like a separation. In this distance, in this separation, we find the breaking of this enchantment. The first sign we can say of the ecological crisis. However, humanity has retained that holistic view of its place in the cosmos in religious and mystical experience. In Christianity and Islam, we find many examples of this. We have something close of Chiara Lubich, for example, during a period of enlightened spiritual experience in 1949, she perceived a strong presence of God's love, which through its continuous creative action sustains all things and sees all things in a web of loving relationships. And she says, what appears distinct and separate, a flower, the sky, the sun and the moon, the sea or a puddle, the mystic saw as unified by a loving light that governed all things, as if all creation were a song of love, as if the stones and snow, flowers and stars were so united in their essence with that light and with each other that they seemed created as gifts for each other, one being in love with all the others. This reminds us of what Talassia said earlier. A Christian liturgy, especially in Eastern traditions, plays an important role in holding together the spiritual and the natural. During our liturgical celebrations, we continually include material elements in our prayer as individual and communities, beginning with the bread and wine, with which from the material world in the Eucharist, which come from the material world of the Eucharist, the liturgy tends to involve all our physical senses, our eyes through the images of icons and liturgical vestments, our ears through hymns and songs, our sense of smell through the use of incense, candles, etc. We can also give a quick look at the Islamic view of nature, which is rooted in the Quran. I lived in a Muslim country, and this helped me to really understand or immerse myself in this environment. It's in Islam, we find that God is primarily the God of creation. Ramadan, for example, which commemorates the descent of the Holy Quran on the Prophet Muhammad, may peace be upon him, is based on the lunar calendar. There are more than 750 verses in the Quran dealing with nature, and there are 16 of the 114 surahs are named after animals of natural phenomena. The cow, thunder. In a famous hadith, God asks the human beings to plant trees. Planting a tree is considered an act of worship. He says, if the resurrection is beginning and one of you has a sapling in his hand, then he can plant before he gets up. He must do so. In another hadith, we discover that animals have rights for which humans are held responsible. Whoever kills a sparrow for no reason at all will be questioned by God on Judgment Day. A very powerful feature of Islamic spirituality holds that the whole of creation, the whole universe, can be considered Muslim. Here we refer to its etymological root, Islam, which could be translated as surrendering to God and his rules. This also indicates a sense of wholeness, physical and spiritual. So the whole of wholeness, physical and spiritual, to hold together, not disintegrate. And the point of this insight is that God sustains creation in its unity. In other words, nature is saved because by obeying the rules of nature, it does God's will. So what about human beings? Similar to Christianity, in Islam, human beings are basically the vicars of God on earth. In the Surah 2, verse 30, we find a beautiful picture of this project. God is about to create the world, and the angels say, the Lord says to the angels, I am placing a successor on earth. And they say to him, they reply, will you put someone there to corrupt it and shed blood while we proclaim your praises and sanctify you? And he says, I know what you do not know. We note here how God is not only putting the human being above the angels, but is especially expressing optimism towards our ability to know, protect, preserve, and manage its resources, because sometimes we think that we are there only to corrupt nature. Whereas this surah helps us to understand how we must protect, preserve, and manage nature's resources. And this is profoundly part of the patrimony of all religions. So this helps us to go ahead. God has faith in our ability to protect nature. So then, what is nature? From what we have seen so far, a picture emerges that can help us to redefine the terms of the question of being human nature, and that can orient us to develop a new paradigm to face the ecological crisis. It seems to me that both religions converge at least on these points. Nature is seen as a sign of God's presence and therefore charged with a metaphysical meaning that points beyond itself. It is perceived, nature as a gift, it is perceived as a gift and therefore intended primarily to create a relationship and not to be consumed. It's a relationship that we build. So God utilizes nature as a gift, as a capacity of a bond, to create a bond with nature. Today, all our hopes for the environment seem to be focused on science. This is clearly very important. I am a scientist. However, science and technology alone cannot solve the ecological problem. We need the wisdom to help us decide the path on which we want to walk as a humanity. And I am convinced that the vision of nature that is rooted in our religious traditions and that is so beautifully presented in Laudato Si is a call to the responsibility to think together and to act together. Chiara reminds us everything on earth is in a loving relationship with everything else, but it is necessary to be love in order to grasp the golden thread that binds all beings together. So it is important to understand that the ethics themselves, it's not enough. We can't do something ethical if we are not guided by this relationship with what we would like to do. And so we have this relationship with nature, we can protect it. I would like to close this moment of reflection by quoting a great champion of spiritual environmentalism, His Holiness Patriarch Bartholomew, whose words I'm sure will inspire us today. He says, it is not too late. God's world has incredible healing powers. Within a single generation, we could be guiding the earth towards our children's future. Let that generation begin now, because now is the kairos, the decisive moment in human history when we can really make a difference, because now is the kairos, when the consciousness of the world is up to the challenge, because now is the kairos, for us to save the world of our planet, to save the soul of our planet, because now is Kairos. There is no other day than today, this time, this moment. In fact, let it begin now. May God bless us all to bring our labors to fruition. And with this, I conclude this part, and I invite you to look for 3 minutes to this video. And so this is, I believe, directly in English. So
we inherited a beautiful world. All the major faiths celebrate the natural world as a gift of the divine. But in a world facing multiple crises, from climate change and environmental collapse to historic inequalities and the coronavirus pandemic, what we do matters. People of faith from all over the world are coming together to take action for people and planet. Motivated by their beliefs and values, they are working to empower their communities and deliver concrete change on climate change, on the environment, on biodiversity, and sustainable development. Faith Plans for People and Planet is a fast-growing initiative bringing together faith communities from all around the world. In fact, it is already the biggest and most ambitious environmental initiative ever developed by the faiths. Already, hundreds of faith groups, from Buddhists, Christians and Hindus to Jews, Muslims, Sikhs and more, have signed up to develop faith plans, commitments to use their assets, investments and influence for the benefit of people and planet. Join us. If we work together, we really can make the difference the world so badly needs. Faiths are major stakeholders in the planet, owning or managing an astonishing array of assets, from buildings and land to health facilities and schools. Faith Plans for People and Planet is a program developed by faiths for faiths. It's organized by Faith Invest and the WWF's Beliefs and Values program, and is already supported by dozens of faith and environmental organizations around the world, including grassroots groups in Kenya, foundations in China, UN agencies, and the world's leading faith networks. So how does it work? First, you go over to faithplans.org and sign up to join forces with hundreds of other faith communities around the world. Then you form a planning team to work on a dedicated plan that is right for your organization, with plenty of support from the Faith Plans team and community. If enough of us come together, and the Faith Plans community grows large enough, we really can change the world. But the clock is already ticking. The world is facing a climate emergency. Scientists say it's code red for humanity. Time is running out, and the future depends on what we do in the next few years. When we face our challenges hand in hand, motivated by faith, inspired by hope, we are as strong as we are diverse. That's the power of faith. Join us, sign up, take action.
Ecco, grazie. Questo purtroppo era in inglese.
Thank you. It was in English, but go to chat you can see it on YouTube.
Comunque possiamo chiedere anche di fare una traduzione più ufficiale. Come avete visto nei titoli di coda di questo video
As you see in this video clip, the Focolare movement has this faith plans also. We are part of these faith plans, and we are working on something that will be developed in the following years. We have a link on the chat with Google Forms. So those of you who would like to do something, who can do something, fill up this form, and we can then create this movement together of people who commit themselves to to be part of these faith plans. So we will find a way to make use of all our talents. Now I would like to we go to Zarina. They tell us what they are doing there in the local level, these faith plans in preparation for COP26. Welcome.
And thank you, everybody. Hello. It's a real pleasure to be here with you all today. As Nino says, my name's Eddie, and I live with my wife and 3 children in a town called Dunblane, which is less than 1 hour away from Glasgow, where COP26 starts next week. And I first got to know the Focolare when I was about 17 years old. And hopefully I can now share my screen. Let's see if this works. Okay, I hope you can all see that. So for a long time, the Focolare movement here in Scotland mostly consisted of Roman Catholic Christians, with a few members and friends from other Christian denominations. About 6 years ago, a very good friend of the Focolare in Great Britain, called Dr. Mohammed Shumali, suggested to a group of Shia Muslims in Glasgow that they should get to know the Focolare in Scotland. These Shia Muslims are part of 2 organisations, the Alabate Society Scotland and the Glasgow Alabate Association. And from the moment we first met, an instant friendship was born. A friendship based on our sincere relationship with God, as understood through our different faiths, and our desire to love our neighbours. So since then, Focolare, Alabate Scotland and the Glasgow Alabate Association have undertaken many shared activities together. These have all focused on growing in unity with each other. And we've really become great friends. And today, in the next few minutes, I would like to share that journey with you and how it's brought us together to work for the environment. Through the activities we've undertaken, we've learned a lot about each other, our faiths and our spirituality. We've built long and deep lasting friendships by supporting events that each others have held, and through sharing in each other's feast days and important community activities. We've also spent time relaxing and having fun together, like in this instance, in this picture, the barbecue that we shared together. And from very early on, a key characteristic of our friendship has been our shared focus on the environment. We've undertaken tree planting together, planting over 1,000 trees on a very rainy day that you can see in these pictures. Tree planting is a very practical environmental activity. We're planning to do it again later this month. Before COVID, we also jointly arranged a youth weekend that had a particular focus on environmental issues. And in this photo, you can see us throwing the eco dice that Dr. Lorna Gold, there in the middle of the picture beside Dr. Shumali, gave us after coming to speak to us. Each face of the dice gives suggestions for how to live for the environment. The youth weekend was so successful that the adults and families of Focolare, Alabate Scotland and the Glasgow Alabate Association decided that they wanted to hold a similar event for themselves a few months later. In May of this year, during United World Week, the young people of Focolare in Great Britain, the people of Alabate and the Glasgow Alabate Association, and young people from the Islamic Unity Society in England held an environmental social media campaign on Twitter, Instagram, and other social media accounts. All these activities are based on relationships of fraternal love and unity. And it's on that basis that we're also preparing 2 key events for COP26 that will take place next week. So I'm now going to pass to Zarina, who is a very good friend of Focolare, Alabate in Glass Society in Scotland and the Glasgow Alabate Association. Zarina is helping us to organise these events and will tell you more of what we've planned. So Zarina, over to you. Can you unmute, or can somebody unmute Zarina?
Thank you. Thanks, Eddie. And thanks, Nino, for having us here today. It's an honour to be here. And as Eddie said, I'm not part of any organisation, but see myself as a good and mutual friend of Alabate Society, Faiths4Earth and Glasgow Albates. I first engaged with Alabate Society over 7 years ago through my work as an environmentalist, helping communities to take action against climate change. And that through Scottish Government, because they have a fund that helps communities to do this kind of work. And it was Azam Mohammed, one of the key leaders of Alabate, who introduced me to the lovely people at Faiths4Earth and also Glasgow Alabate. I was very warmly welcomed, and that's where the friendship started. So, as you will be aware, this year, COP26, the climate conference, has come to our hometown, Glasgow in Scotland. And as you can imagine, there is a buzz of activities happening, and we couldn't let such a momentous occasion go past without coming together and doing something to get the voices of our communities involved in such an important global discussion. So, we've planned to host a series of events. The first exciting event is titled COP26, Faith Plans for People and Planet on Sunday the 7th of November. The aim of this event is to bring together a wide range of faith groups, individuals and faith leaders to move beyond just talking to actual action. Essentially allowing participants to 1. Make the link between faith and the environment, 2. Recognise what is already being done, 3. Identify the gaps in action, and 4. To look ahead to the future. In this event, the main area of focus will be the Faith Plans Group programme, a tool for action. We are honoured that Martin Palmer, the CEO of Faith Invest, will be there to introduce the Faith Plans programme, followed by a series of short presentations from groups who have already started creating faith plans. This event is going to be a hybrid event, so both we will have people in person with around 50 to 80 people being present, and we are also inviting guests to join and participate online. So please, if you are interested, we would love for you to join us, and the registration link will be made available after this presentation. So following on from this event, we are going to host a dinner at the Faiths4Earth House. And this will be on the Monday evening, and it will be to continue the conversation that we're going to have. And we're hoping that approximately 30 people will come and attend. We have found that the larger events are great for stimulating conversations and ideas. However, there never is enough time for deeper conversations. So this dinner will provide an opportunity for those that want to connect and have those challenging conversations in a welcoming environment where you know that the space is held with kindness and non-judgment. And our third event will be a day of action. And this is going to be sometime towards the end of November, beginning of December. And we're planning to have a further tree planting day, bringing the 3 groups together to jointly dig and plant, and of course celebrate with some good food afterwards. Then Alabate Society each year organises and hosts the Peace and Unity Conference, which brings faith leaders, communities and politicians together to discuss important social justice issues. The next conference is planned for the new year in 2022, and we're hoping that we will be able to continue the environmental work and the theme, and continue the follow-up on the Faith Plans programme and see what communities have started doing. And what we hope to achieve through these events is to address both individual and collective responsibilities of faith communities in particular, and to see what actions we can do to protect our world, the planet and all life which inhabits it. Thank you for listening, and we are here if you have any further questions. Over to you, Nino.
Thanks, Serena. Thanks, Eddie. That was great. And so looking forward to
Grazie.
going to Glasgow myself on the 8th and 9th. So yeah, that would be great. And so now we have the opportunity to, well, literally we have 5 minutes. Italiano. Adesso abbiamo l'opportunità, se vogliamo, di fare alcune domande.
Okay, now we have the chance to have, we can answer a few questions if you have any,
O attraverso slide oppure
or
aprire il microfono.
through slide, that program we said earlier, or through chat.
Don't be shy.
Nino, buongiorno, sono Antonia Testa.
Ciao Antonia.
Roma.
I'm Antonia Testa.
Guarda, interessantissimo.
It's very, very interesting. And my question is
Quindi,
this.
se ho capito bene, questo faith plan
This faith plan
della COP26
is already part of COP26. Is it so?
E poi
And
come Laudato Si.
Laudato Si,
Parte di questo faith plan?
does it have a part in this faith plan?
Domande interessanti.
It's an interesting question. So faith plans, it's part of COP26, not really. COP26 is very wide. There are many parallel sessions being held. So on the part of religions, Lorna will have a part there. She will speak about in one of the sessions. So it's not really on the agenda, on the general agenda. That's part of the different sessions that will be held.
Sono due cose molto vicine, ma anche
there are two very similar, actually. The platform Laudato Si forms part of this, but Laudato Si movement makes part of Faith Invest. So it's like a bigger circle, if you like. And so even the faith plans of the Catholic Church come in there, and those of the great religions. So it's like, Laudato Si is all part of faith plans. So thank you.
Credo che tanti abbiamo avuto questa domanda. Adesso
I think many of us had this question, but there will be a progress on this. For now, the movement that we are, we're more on the faith plans on a world level. It calls on all faiths. Another question. Religions for Peace forms part of the signatories. They are a partner within Faith Invest, and it develops faith plans.
Nina, c'è una domanda sullo slide che dice se è possibile seguire l'evento online del 7 novembre.
So can we follow on the 7th of November online? Can we follow? There will be the keep of Saint Clare audio visuals who will be there for this meal, for this dinner. But I think we'll put some news on the next link up, so you will be informed about it.
Nino, can I come in? We will have a live link for the evening, and if we have 2 minutes to try and find it, I'll try and paste it in the chat just now. But we will have a live Zoom link that people will be able to join and watch at a distance. So give me 2 minutes, and I'll try and put it in the chat just now. But if there is a circulation list afterwards that you can share it, then we can share it through that as well.
I think also with the live link, we will be having round table discussions, so people can actually join in with some of the discussions as well.
Oh, wonderful. I didn't know that.
2 minutes whilst there's other questions, and I can try and find the link.
Yeah, so it would be really good to have like a really global contribution to some of these discussions. We're trying to get as many faith groups involved because the faith plans at the moment are still very much concentrated around Christians and Muslims. So we're trying to encourage other faith groups to also join in with the faith plans.
Nel frattempo leggiamo un'altra domanda che mi sembra è già stata votata. Il movimento dei focolari preparerà delle linee guida o delle procedure per le comunità locali? In molti focolari non c'è nemmeno il riciclaggio. Interessante.
So this refers to the recycling in the focolare centers. So we must really try to develop this in us. It's difficult to make rules as such, but it's a process that we try to recycle at least in our focolare centers. There are 2 questions in the chat. Zarina?
Yeah, there's a question in the chat that I'd like to just address. So it's asking what else are we doing in the community apart from tree planting? So at Al Bayt, they've done actually a number of things. So they've been looking at energy efficiency in households and helping households to make the houses more energy efficient and move from fossil fuel electricity to renewable energy. They've also helped communities to start thinking about the way they travel around the city, to try and encourage more people to use public transport, car sharing, and getting people on their bikes. So we had the bike project that we had a couple of years ago was really successful, to the point that a lot of the women now have been asking for us to restart the bike project, and we're looking for funding to do that. We've been doing an upcycling project as well, where we look at old materials and making them into new items like cushions, aprons, slippers. Lots of different items have been made using old fabric. And the biggest part of the project is probably the food element. So we're looking at food and where our food comes from, trying to reduce food packaging, trying to reduce food waste. But the bit I'm most excited about, and I'm hoping that we can get the Focolare movement involved in this, is actually creating a cookbook where we look at food stories from around the world and how they've been impacted by climate change. So we're preparing a cookbook, and hopefully that will be out soon, and we can share that with you all.
Very interesting. Thanks, Serena. Sì, qui probabilmente ci sarà da fare un gioco tra, la necessità di elaborare.
Here we need to have guidelines for the whole world, and also what the local communities can do. In some areas, at the local level, we need to understand what to do then at the local level. So how can we understand about COP26? What should we do? We must inform ourselves. But even there, we have to see what we can do at our level to really make, communicate, share this information at the local level.
I've now put the link for the meeting on the 7th into the chat. So if people would like to join, they can log on there. The time is UK time, so you need to adjust for wherever you are.
Yeah, Eddie, sorry, just to be sure, this is the link for the meeting on the 7th with the Muslim friends, right?
This is the large event, not the dinner. Yes, with our faith, not solely the dinner, but the event that we're holding together with Al Bayt Scotland and the Glasgow Al Bayt Association.
Okay. Whereas for the dinner, there is no link.
There's no link for the dinner.
Okay. But we'll keep you posted on that too. Penso che siamo andati già fuori tempo massimo, però insomma.
I think we have gone beyond our time. I think we have to greet one another. But if you really like to remain in contact, you can fill up this form.
Non so cosa c'è con la regia, possiamo ancora prendere una domanda?
So maybe we stop there. Yes, I think we thank everyone, and we remind you that tomorrow,
dell'Italia cambia. Allora è
oh, we
un'ora
change the time, so we go 1 hour back.
State attento perché si inizia
So be careful, turn your clocks 1 hour backwards. Those who are in Europe, so we have 1 hour.
Ringraziamo a tutti.
Not
Nino ha già
less, actually, 1 hour more.
nella chat, possibile?
So any more?
Grazie.
Thank
Grazie a
you.
voi.